Hey world travelers, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet and around the world on satellite radio. We have a guest coming in from San Miguel de Alende in Mexico, Kallen Diggs. He's the author of Reaching the Finish Line. He's sort of a career counselor. He helps people. He's helped over 2,000 people sort of improve their business life, their work life, whether it be through getting better jobs or through even starting up their own companies. And he's quite well known. He's been all kinds of radio all over the place, and been quite successful with the book as well. So we're going to talk about that because I know there's a lot of broke anarchists out there, and we got to snap you out of it. And we're also going to talk about how he just moved in the last 6 weeks from Austin, Texas, down to Mexico. And we're going to ask him about why he did that and how he's been enjoying the move so far. But before we get into all of that, we got to check your street cred. How did you become an anarchist?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I'm not usually a huge fan of labels, but I guess if I had to fix myself to a label, it would be like a libertarian or a voluntarist, but I guess it's all the same thing anyway. But since 2007, I learned about Ron Paul, and initially when I started off, I was very young. I would say about 17, 18 years old when I started getting interested into politics, and I guess I kind of started off as a Democrat, as a liberal, and I didn't know any better. Most minorities don't know any better anyway, but because that's how the system is. But after a while, I got fed up, because I know, usually when you vote for one party, you don't get everything you want. You only get half of the things you want. And it kind of just becomes a cycle that goes on. And I got tired of that. I kind of wanted some more solutions. So I ran into Ron Paul, and I really resonated with his message. Initially, I kind of stepped away from it because he was named as a Republican, and all the indoctrination I had when I grew up, Republicans were bad and all that. But long story short, really it wasn't about Republican when it came to Ron Paul. Ron Paul was about a message of liberty and freedom, and that's something I really resonated with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, glad to have you on our side. And so before we get into the book, which we're going to talk a lot about and about what you do, I want to ask you about your trip down to Mexico. For people who don't know, there's a lot of people who have been moving down to Mexico recently, a lot of anarchists, anarcho-capitalists, voluntarists, libertarians, all the same thing, really. And just different ones have different baggage and different things, but they're all basically the same thing. And I was just yesterday at a meetup group here in Acapulco, so a lot of people who came to Anarchapulco last year. There's dozens who just stayed, and so I went out with about a dozen or more of them yesterday, and that was nice. And you're in San Miguel, and we have a lot of TDV readers in San Miguel as well. And so tell us a little bit about why, first of all, you left Texas, and why and how your trip's been going so far.
Yeah. So the reason why I left is because I always like to I like to always change my environment, and I lived abroad in the past, lived in Ecuador, and that was quite an interesting experience. But I do find Mexico is a better is a better country transitioning for most expats, because usually Ecuador was like a huge kind of culture shock, as opposed to Mexico is much more comfortable, much more kind of easy to transition to. Mexico has been very great so far. I wasn't kidnapped, I wasn't shot, I wasn't robbed, none of that stuff. Crossing the border was actually very easy. For those of you who don't know, I took the bus to Mexico, so I didn't fly. I kind of wanted the ultimate adventure. So I took the bus to Mexico, and I left from Austin to Laredo. And then from Laredo, I went to San Miguel de Alende. So basically, I had to switch to another bus when I got to the bus station in Nuevo Laredo. And then I switched there, and I got to San Miguel. But as far as getting the 6-month tourist visa and all that, it was very straightforward. Officers were very nice. They checked my stuff. They said, "Hey, welcome to Mexico." They didn't dump my stuff on the floor. I didn't get frisked. They didn't stick their hands in my pants. Basically, what happened was, once I went through the customs, they just took a quick peek in the bag and said, "Welcome to Mexico." It was very straightforward.
Yeah, and a lot of times they don't even check. When you come through on a bus, they do check. But if you're just driving in or even walking in across a lot of those borders, there's actually usually not even anyone even there. So it's a lot better as far as ease of travel getting into Mexico. So that's interesting. You took the bus down. I've known a lot of people have taken the bus. Did you take the VIP buses or?
So I took, what was it called? I took Primera Plus from Nuevo Laredo to San Miguel. It was, I mean, it wasn't like ETN. And for those of you, a lot of expats do highly recommend that bus because I guess it's one of the best buses. I haven't read it, but I took one called Primera Plus, and it was okay. It was a nice bus. It was very comfortable. I would definitely say it's way better than Greyhound in the U.S. I can't stand those buses. I had to ride that bus to get to Laredo, but it was.
Well, it's in a third world country, so that's why the buses aren't so good up in the U.S.
Yeah, so Primera Plus was great. The bus driver was cool. The seats were very comfortable. They were clean. It was a very comfortable ride. A lot of people think that they think bad of Mexico, so they think that everything else is bad about Mexico. But the buses are some of the most cleanest that I've seen during my international travels.
Yeah, and there's some called VIP buses for people who don't know. And so if you get the option, always take the VIP, and there's usually like leather reclining chairs and entertainment units, and some of them even have Wi-Fi, so for people looking to come down. So now you're in San Miguel. You've been there for a few weeks. How have you been enjoying it?
Oh, it's been great. A lot of locals are to kind of explain, at least for Mexico, and Jeff, you're already familiar with it, a lot of locals here are very friendly. They're very welcoming. They're very amenable to Americans. I haven't had any problems yet. I've made a lot of good friends so far. People have been nothing but helpful. San Miguel is more of a mountainous city.
Sorry about that. Our internet connection just dropped, and Kallen had to move to a different part of his house with a more Wi-Fi connection, but he's back again. So we were just talking, Kallen, about your experience in San Miguel.
Yeah. So again, a lot of people kind of think that locals won't be as friendly to you or as amenable to you, or they kind of have the idea that these gringos are coming to take over our city. But the Mexicans here has been very friendly, very amenable. I've actually had the opportunity to meet a lot of good friends, and met a lot of also fellow like-minded expats, which has been great. A lot of the same conveniences as in the U.S. For people who are vegan or vegetarian or like organic food, they have all that here. That's definitely a plus for someone who's used to those type of things. When it comes to mail services, a lot of Americans say, well, what about mail? Let's say I want to work on another country and kind of have a location independent business. Well, there's actually 3 mail services that cater to gringos, and I use one of them. I use one called Lavinia. They've run by two Texans. Back in the States, and it's been nothing but a great service. They take care of my mail needs, and if I want something, I buy something in the U.S., they go to the border, they pick it up, and they bring it back. So I've been making a transition to Mexico quite nicely, Jeff.
That's great. And I should point out that a lot of people use something that we have at the Dollar Vigilante. And I think a lot of anarchists who are interested in possibly expatriating should definitely sign up for this service. It's called TDV Groups. It's actually being changed to the Vigilante Expat Network just right at the moment. But if you just go to tdvgroups.com, and you'll see all the groups around the world. And there's dozens, if not hundreds now, and definitely hundreds of people. And there's groups all over, including all throughout Mexico, including San Miguel. So it's a great resource. So if you're thinking about leaving the U.S. or wherever you're from, whichever fascio communist police state you're from, you might want to sign up for that because it's a great resource. So you don't have to just go into a place and not know anyone. You could probably find people on the ground who are already like-minded as well, who are already libertarians and entrepreneurs and things like that. So it's a great network. So just go to dollarvigilante.com and subscribe there. It's only $15 a month. And a lot of people I know say it's a great service and it's really helped them with their move. So let's get into what you do now with crossing the finish line. And you're obviously independent. Location independent. You can work from anywhere, which is what I've always told people is the best possible scenario if you can do that. And I've been doing that for about 20 years almost now, and it's great because you can just work from anywhere. And so let's talk about what you're doing. Let's talk about your book, and let's get into those sort of topics.
Yeah, so since the Great Recession, I've helped over 2,000 people reach the finish line in their careers. So people from different backgrounds, um, high school dropouts, college dropouts, single moms, disabled people, whichever situation that you're in. That's why I've been doing now going on 5 years, and only 30% of Americans are happy with their jobs. So that's 70% of people who have some type of dissatisfaction with their current careers. And the last thing you want to do is be working in a job that you last thing you want to be doing is working in a job that you hate, and that's not how that's not how you're going to reach the finish line. So there's a lot of people, Jeff, that kind of want to go in a different direction. There's even struggling entrepreneurs who are currently entrepreneur, but they've been struggling with their business, and I've helped a lot of those people to do that as well. So reaching the finish line is sort of like a comprehensive book, where I kind of condense it down and try to touch on kind of every facet of how people can reach the finish line in their career, and it's been very successful. 2.5 weeks ago, it became an international bestseller. So the reason why I wrote the book, because I couldn't work with everybody. It was only one of me, and I was getting almost nearly a day. I thought that perhaps it'll be good to write a book. So that's why I wrote the book, and a lot of people have been giving great feedback.
Yeah, that's great. And so yeah, like you pointed out, there's so many people not totally happy with what they're doing. And I was thinking about that just the other day as I was doing my usual 18-hour workday, 7 days a week, although I'm trying to cut it down to 6.5 days now. I try to golf on Sundays now, which actually I've been really enjoying. But I was just thinking about like, how do I do all this, or why do I do all this? And I was thinking it's because I love it. Like, I'm seriously just passionate about it. If you told me I was going to die in a week, I'd probably still keep working right up until the last minute, because it's something that I just really enjoy. Now, of course, it's not always easy, as you know, having a business. Yeah. There's always going to be really bad days. There's going to be really crappy times. But in general, I just am so passionate about what I'm doing that I couldn't think of doing anything else. There's really nothing else I want to do at this moment in time. And that's so important for entrepreneurs out there, is to, if you're going to start a business, or even if you're just going to work for someone, which is really just being your own small business, just one person, try to make it something that you're really passionate about, because it's the night and day difference. Like, for example, if you told me, I've been quite successful in my life in many things. If you told me, hey, here's an opportunity, you can start a widget factory, and you're going to make like $3 million a year just doing it. It won't be too hard, but you have to go in there every day and just, do it. The widget factory would probably suck, because I wouldn't care. I just wouldn't have any interest in. I don't care about widgets. I don't even know what a widget is. So it makes it so much easier when you can find a career path or a business that you're just passionate about. That's just night and day difference, because it's the difference between staying up all night working on something because you want to do it, rather than because you have to do it. It's just night and day, and the results are the same, because if you're not passionate, you're just not really trying very hard, and it's more of like it's more of work than something that you're passionate about. Whereas if you're working on something that you love, and it sounds like you're doing something you love, it just doesn't even seem like work.
Yeah, it definitely. And I have the pleasure and opportunity to be able to help people to reach the finish line in careers. Everyone kind of has a different direction. Some people, they don't want to work for anybody anymore. They want to kind of have their own entrepreneur venture, and I help people with that. And then you have people who are currently struggling with their business, and they kind of need to kind of reform or transform their business in order to grow their business and get more national recognition. In which I also have the privilege of being able to help people, and there's lots of people that kind of falls in between. Like, for example, I went to a high school in where 40% of the high school senior females were pregnant. So there were a lot of young females getting pregnant, and having to start their family, but they don't have a lot of skills. Most high schools, especially, well, I can't speak for all high schools, but most public high schools, especially, you don't learn much. Usually if you go to if you go to one of the big urban public high schools, you won't learn much. You won't be better off, once you go to college. And that's why, in some cases, most students, when they go to colleges, they have to take remedial courses because they learned that in high school.
Yeah, and most college courses are a waste of time too. There's of course some things that might make some sense. If you want to be a doctor in like the Western world where you need like the piece of paper, you're going to have to go to college. But for most things, like the one thing that I always just laugh at is people going to business, taking business in college for 4 years. So they're going to pay tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't know what they teach them, because I can teach you business in about 10 seconds or less. Find a product or service that is not being provided or is being provided and provided for cheaper or better quality. That's it. Done. That's basically all you need to know about business. Of course, there's details, but that's basically it. So I've been very anti-school pretty much. Even when I was younger, I finished my high school, my public indoctrination camp. I got my badge of obedience just because my mom wanted me to. But I was saying the whole time since about grade 7, this is a complete waste of my time, because I was into computers at the time. They didn't even have computers in the school. So I'd have to sit there for 8 hours, memorize propaganda about, I'm from Canada, so which prime minister saved us from this, or who did this for that. And it's mostly all lies. And it was a complete waste of time. So I've actually told many people over the last few years, like even mothers of children who have children, and they say, are you sure they should just drop out of school? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jeff. There are some school models that can be helpful, like Waldorf or a lot of experiential learning models, and where kids have the opportunity to be able to learn, whether it's visually, auditorily, or kinesthetically. I think those are the best ways for children to learn, because everyone learns differently, and I think that model should also be applied to college, because you can't stick a person in college, throw a bunch of books in front of their face, and then expect them to be able to regurgitate information on a test and to be able to use that in real world experience. It doesn't work like that. Everyone learns differently. Like I said, we have visually, auditorily, kinesthetically. Some people are left brain, some people are right brain. So the whole traditional school model as a one size fits all is absolutely horrible. But for the people who do want to go to college, and I would recommend that go to college for a specialized field rather than a non-specialized field. Last thing you want to do is go to college for art history degree that's going to cost you about $60,000, $70,000 a year, then graduate working at Walmart. I mean, you don't want to do that. But unfortunately, most people are kind of stuck in that trap. But if you want to go to college, consider a specialized career. Like if you want to be a doctor, well, you don't have a choice anyway. No one's going to allow you to work for them if you don't have your doctor's degree. So those specialized careers, there's still some demand. But those non-specialized careers, I would definitely challenge the person to take a second look.
Yeah, definitely. When I say don't go to school, I'm not saying don't learn. That's totally not what I'm saying. I'm learning every single day. When I'm not totally working, I spend my time reading. I'll give you an example of something I just did the other night. So I was working all day, and it was getting around mid-evening, and I was kind of tired, and I could tell I was fading, and it wasn't going to be very productive. So I said, I'm going to take off like an hour or two. So I went upstairs, I turned on Netflix, I went straight to documentaries, and I looked for something that I thought I could learn something about. So I just watched Steve Jobs documentary or something, and it was really, it taught me a lot about how he built his business and what sort of personality traits work and things like that. So even when I'm in my downtime, I'm still trying to learn, and that's what it's all about. And what's happened, I think, with this school and college sort of model is that it's so boring, and you're sitting in these classes in these wooden chairs half the time and just listening to some idiot usually drone on about something, and you just got to memorize what he says. And what that does is it takes away a lot of people's interest in learning, because they think that's how you're supposed to learn, and it's super boring and it sucks, so they don't want to learn anymore, when that's not the truth. Now, of course, we have the internet. All information is on the internet. It's in your pocket right now. This is an amazing time in human history. You can learn anything. There's all kinds of great things if you do, like you pointed out, Kallen, like many people learn differently. Some people, for whatever reason, need some sort of school environment. There's things like Ron Paul homeschool. Tom Woods has his own Liberty homeschooling sort of project. There's all kinds of all kinds of resources, including Khan Academy for math, if you're interested in math, that you can just learn on your own for free.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also advise too, if you want to go to college for a non-specialized career, make sure you're not paying for it. There's a lot of tuition-free programs in the U.S. if people want to go to college for free. Some of them are very competitive. Others are based on things like ethnicity or gender or sexual orientation or a lot of other different types of things. Like if you have a special interest in a field, or if you have some type of volunteer experience that's related, you can use that as the entry point to get to be a part of some of these tuition-free programs. But yeah, I would recommend that. If you want to go to college, that's fine. But if it's not specialized, like art history or music, make sure you're not paying for it, because you're just going to become a student loan debt victim, and that's the last thing you want to be. And sadly, Jeff, a lot of millennials are going to die with their student loan debt because it's completely unaffordable.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you're pointing out that you might have some ability to get more free education if you're different ethnicity or different race or different sexual preference or stuff. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can just look at, who was it, that one politician in the U.S., she says she was Native American to get her college. And then there's the leader of one of those, what is it, who was that woman who's white but said she was black and like permed her hair?
Yeah, I don't know her name, but she's the former NAACP president.
Yeah, so you just kind of, if you want to get some of those scholarships, just perm your hair up a little bit. Too funny. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about the book and what you tell people in it. So give us just some more examples of things that you tell people in the book and what you've done to help people. Just give us a few examples maybe of the kinds of things.
For sure. So, the U.S., I guess the U.S. Has been decreasing when it comes to their quality of education. But when it comes to high school graduation rates, the U.S. has definitely improved as opposed to 20 to 30 years ago. So they definitely made some progress in that. So you don't see a lot of high school dropouts as you have done probably 20 or 30 years ago. But however, there are still a significant amount of high school dropout people, because again, like whether it's a young female who gets pregnant at a very early age, or let's say if it's a guy who get caught up in something, maybe whether it's crime or those type of things, they drop out of high school, or and they kind of go in a different direction with their lives. Well, a lot of people think that well, I'm screwed. The only thing I'm amount to is McDonald's or Walmart because I only have my high school diploma. That's simply not the case. If you look at areas that are booming, like Texas or North Dakota, those areas are booming when it comes to energy, especially oil. Like, so for example, I've helped one person now that works in North Dakota, and he has no high school diploma. His skill set is not vast, probably average as anyone else, and he gets paid $25 an hour. And that's unheard of, because most of the time, usually people without a high school diploma, they're stuck working at McDonald's or at Walmart making like minimum wage. But it's just those type of examples to show that there are opportunities out there for people to be able to reach the finish line in their careers. The same thing with college. Yeah, that's probably the more popular demographic that we have today. A lot of people, it takes them actually 6 years to get a bachelor's degree as opposed to 4 years, because with most college students, they either change the major, or sometimes they go to a school that has very overcrowded college classes, and sometimes they will only offer a certain course that's required for your college curriculum for 1 year. So if you miss it during the fall semester, you have to wait until the following fall semester just to take that other to take that college course to be able to graduate with your college degree. So it really is, it's kind of a flawed system. I like to recommend that people, if they don't have like let's say if they kind of want to start, let's say maybe studying liberal arts, or try something like CLEP courses or DSST courses, also known as credit by examination, which allows you to be able to test out of courses instead of spending 4 months in a school, in an institution where probably the professor is boring the hell out of you. You can result to CLEP courses or DSST courses. You get test out of courses that you already know and get your degree in 1 year as opposed to 4 to 6 years.
Yeah, there's so many options. People get locked into this. Well, we have to go to school, we have to go to college, or else we're never going to make any money. We're never going to be successful. Totally not the case. I've never been asked for my high school diploma in my entire life. Like people, it's just who cares? Can you do the job? Is basically what most of the people that employed me. That's all they cared. And I don't have a college diploma, and no one cares. It's just can I do what I say I'm going to do, and do I have experience at it? And that's another big thing, is that people are wasting so much time going through all the 12 years of government indoctrination camp, and then they go for another 4 more years into something like you pointed out, maybe generalized, like Bachelor of Arts, and waste another 4 years. So that's 16 years they've been just wasting, and they could be getting experience. They could be out there working. I'll give you an example of my kids, 8 and 10 years old, and they're hassling me like crazy right now. They want to open a restaurant. And
wow.
And my wife is actually down with it, and she came up with a pretty good idea. And my daughter, she's 8, she wants to be the waitress, and she's going to make a killing in tips, I can guarantee you. And she's going to learn so much from it, right? Because you have to learn how to deal with the public, with customers. You have to know how to do a good job, or you won't do very well with your tips and things like that. Now, of course, in the U.S., I think I'd probably be in jail, right? Because it'd be like child labor or something. But down here, there's not really any sort of rules like that, thankfully. So if we do that, by the time she's 10, she's going to be like a very experienced waitress who knows how to run generally a restaurant. These are the kinds of things that people could be doing, but they get locked into this school mindset, which, unless, as you pointed out, you want to do something very specialized, that it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's where it's really at. If you're going to study a specialized field, your chances are very high that you're going to make your money back. Your ROI from going to college is definitely going to be great. But yeah, that's why I suggest people. And one thing that you mentioned, Jeff, about your kids and they want to start a restaurant. I think that's very cool. Because for myself, when I was younger, I had small lemonade stands. My grandfather helped me out with that, so I can definitely relate to that. It's definitely a great way to introduce your kids to entrepreneurship. But as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of broke anarchists, and they're wondering, how can I have a location independent business? And one thing I talk about in my book is there's a lot of work-at-home employers. So let's say maybe you don't have all the resources or capital ready to get your business started, like boots on the ground in Mexico. Well, you can start working for a work-at-home employer in the U.S. and you can work here. You can work in Mexico or Belize or whatever you want to kind of set up your location independent business. But you can work on them on the side to get steady income while you're building your business down here, whether you're in Mexico or Colombia or wherever you're at. But it's they know a lot of these work-at-home employers like U-Haul or Dell. A lot of these work-at-home employers, they don't have no criteria. It's the same job as you work anyway. Now they're probably going to take taxes out, but again, if you want to kind of just a lot of people have some type of excuse why they can't live abroad or why they can't get started and leave and move out the U.S. Well, that's a solution right there. But at the same time, when it comes to business, you were talking about that, Jeff. There's a lot of opportunities down here. Usually what's been very successful with Americans is they see what's not offered in Mexico. They see it works in the U.S. and they duplicate that model in Mexico. And I've had the privilege to make friends with a lot of expats here, and they've been having a very successful business here in San Miguel.
Yeah, there's tons of opportunity outside of the U.S. And you pointed out you had a lemonade stand when you were a kid. Now that's basically illegal all throughout the U.S. For a kid to have a lemonade stand. John Stossel did a thing. It costs like $40,000 to start up a lemonade stand once you get all the permissions and permits and health inspections. And they literally the cops in the U.S. go around and shut down like 8-year-olds' lemonade stands for not having a permit. So these are the kinds of things that don't happen outside of the U.S. hardly anywhere else, except for maybe Canada. And that's about it. Australia, I guess. Those are the sort of the 3 really highly regulated sort of places that I can think of. Most other places in the world, you just, if you want to start up a bar, you just rent a place and buy some tequila and beer. And there you go. You own a bar. It's just not that easy in the U.S. anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there are some exceptions. So, for example, Nevada, Delaware, Wyoming, Texas, those are definitely good states for business, and you're less likely to see feds raiding lemonade stands there. But it's sad, Jeff. It is overwhelming that more and more places in the U.S. are starting to become more anti-business. It's not what the founders built this country upon. But there are, if you are going to stay in the U.S., there are a lot of business-friendly states that you can do business. Like I said, Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, Texas, they're very pro-business states, and New York is trying to go in that direction too. So there are opportunities abound. So I definitely don't want to discourage people. If they have to stay in the U.S., let's say they have a family, or if they have kids, they already can't leave. I don't want to discourage people to say they can't do it, because you can do it. You just have to be a bit more strategic about it.
Yeah, it's just going to be harder, and you're going to get extorted for a lot of money from taxes and all that. But yeah, you can still do it, of course. I think it's going to get worse and worse, though. That's what I read about the dollar vigilante. So I think the opportunities are just going down in places like the U.S., and I think in other parts of the world, including Asia, Latin America, there's a lot of opportunity, and that's what we talk about and write about at the dollar vigilante quite a bit. Yeah, so it's...
Tell me this, Jeff. I talk to a lot of expats and locals here that have successful businesses here, and I'm not sure the same thing in Acapulco, but a lot of people here, really, there's no regulation. If you want to start a business, you just go up and start a business. I think the mindset here is, if you make too much money, then you get approached. Like, they want you to get on the books, they want you to pay taxes. Is that the same case with Acapulco?
Yeah, it's basically exactly the same. It's sort of a, if you're just starting a small business or something, there's really no regulations. No one cares. No one's going to bother you. But if it becomes into a big business, then yeah, some people are going to start dropping by, either government or cartel. They're basically the same thing anyway. You'd actually be better off if it was cartel, because they're a lot cheaper and a lot nicer. But still, yeah, until the business really grows, there's really not any sort of rules or regulations that I've ever seen down here. So it's great. For entrepreneurs, it's excellent.
Yeah, and I would recommend that if you're thinking about starting your own business, I would say do it abroad. Definitely increases your international business skills. Definitely increases your ability to connect and do business with people of various ethnic populations. Because doing business with a person that comes from Asian culture and doing business with a person that comes from Hispanic culture is different. So if you're actually abroad, be able to gain that experience. Well, let's say if you decide to return to the U.S., or if you decide to do business in another country, that's definitely going to give you an edge over the competition. Because I feel like a lot of businesses, they're not successful is because they don't know how to connect with certain ethnic groups, and I think that plays a part of why business can't be even more successful. They may be successful, but I think they could be even more successful if they have that experience, if they can relate better and how to do business with them.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities, many different countries as well. If I was younger and, if I was 18 and I just finished my indoctrination camp and my parents were saying, well, you should go to college, and they're even willing to pay for it, I would say, well, how much is college? And they'll say $20,000 a year or something. I would say, just give me that $20,000 and I'm going to travel the world for a year. And that would be the best education that I could recommend to anybody. And if you're business minded, you'll see nothing but opportunities around there. Even here in Mexico, Mexico's quite advanced now. The economy is really booming, especially up there where you are, near Querétaro. I see like every week some auto manufacturers moving there or something. So it's doing quite well, but they're still not super advanced. Like, the one thing I can say really good about the U.S. is there's a ton of entrepreneurs there. And so that's also why it's not a great place to start a company, because there's a ton of competition. Someone's always finding an angle to find a better way to provide a service for cheaper or better quality. So you're just always hustling just to stay ahead of them. But down here, they're just, they don't really have that mindset as much. So someone might have a big business, like a hotel, and they might not even have a website. So, you could just walk up and say, you should have a website. And they'd be like, oh, I never thought about that. And it's like, yeah, just pay me like $3,000 or something and I'll do it. And they'll be like, okay. And then you just do that with like 10 other ones. There you go. A lot of people down here don't even have websites. They're not very, the culture is different too, because they're not really, one of the things about Americans in general, I hate to generalize, but they're very focused on making a lot of money, all the time. That's very driven into the culture there. Whereas down here, it's sort of like, yeah, let's make some money, but we're not going to like kill ourselves to do it. So they're not really like pushing to always improve. And so if you come along and you offer them a service, they'd be probably quite open to it, and you probably wouldn't even have any competition. Because people around here just don't think that way.
Yeah. There's not a very huge, rush to jump on innovative things. So yeah, Americans, Canadians, they can definitely come down here and get started with the business very quickly. And I agree with you, Jeff, about kind of the big entrepreneurial scene in the U.S. If you're thinking about being an entrepreneur and you're going to stay in the U.S., you definitely don't want to be in places like Silicon Valley or like those other or like in New York City, those other huge entrepreneurial hubs, because there's going to be a lot of noise, and you're really going to have to it's going to be very fiercely competitive, and unless you're confident in yourself and where you have the ability to know that you can supersede the competition, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. If anything, I would say try to target the emerging cities, the upcoming places. There's one place in Columbus, Ohio, has a very similar type of economy and style like Austin. Austin is the fastest growing city in the U.S., and Columbus is sort of like I guess the Austin of the Midwest, and they have a very small but emerging entrepreneur scene. So for people, like I said, who have to stay in the U.S. if they have families or their wife or whatever their situation is, look at the smaller places and kind of avoid the bigger Silicon Valley, New York places, because you're going to get flushed out. But I think that's where it really promotes it. If you want to be successful much more quickly, maybe going abroad could definitely be a great option, because you think about it, when you start a business. I don't know how it is in Canada, Jeff. I know you've been away from it for quite a while. But in the U.S., if you want to start a business, it's going to depend on what business you're in. It's going to take at least about 3 to 9 months. If you're in a very specialized field where you have to go through more permits, more licenses, things like that. So it could be up to 9 months. But usually if it's more one of the common businesses, it could be 3 months. But that's still 3 months. Like here in Mexico, you can get started like right away. You could be a business within like a week. Because again. The locals here, they're very amenable. They're very welcoming to the business. They're not going to hate you for being American, saying, oh, well, you just want to take over our city. Like, they don't have that mindset. I'm quite sure there are countries that do have that mindset, but Mexico is definitely not one of them.
Yeah, and the other advantage too, and I've seen this because I've traveled the world for about 20 years now. I've been to about 100 countries. Is if you go to a place like Cambodia or trying to think of some other sort of obscure places, Paraguay in South America, Cambodia in Asia, even some of the Eastern European places. If you come in there and you're just an American or whatever, and you're an entrepreneur, you can very quickly meet all of the sort of the big people in the area because they're very interested in you. Because first of all, you're different. Secondly, you're coming from, say, the U.S., so they think you know everything about business, and you probably do know quite a bit. It's quite a bit. It's sort of part of the culture in the U.S. business, or at least it used to be. It's getting a bit worse now, but so you can just very quickly in a place like Cambodia or Laos or a lot of these places get to know everyone, including like the president. It's very easy, and not to say that you really want to know them very well, but it's good to have a good relationship with those people in those countries because they know everybody and you get very tied into the networks. Whereas, as you pointed out, if you're just starting up a little internet company, whatever it is, and you move to Silicon Valley, no one's going to care about you because, there's like a million of you guys here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I admire people like on my podcast, I've interviewed people who have been on Shark Tank and a lot of those type of business reality TV shows that, really, like, unless you're like a pit bull, you have that tenacious spirit, for most people, they can't hang. And that's why usually most people that go to Silicon Valley, only few are successful while most of them fail. So that's why I always tell people to look to, like, again, if it's in the U.S., look to cities that are kind of up and coming and emerging and don't have an overcrowded entrepreneur scene. But definitely when you look at abroad, you definitely see many more opportunities. You won't have any pushback. You can get started in business immediately, and at the same time, you could probably scale it at a much quicker rate as you did if you was in the U.S.
Yeah. I shouldn't put you on the spot like this, but I didn't ask you before we got onto this interview, but we're doing Anarchapulco next year in 2016. It's going to be February 19th to 21st. It'll probably be announced by the time this video goes up. And I was wondering if you have any interest in speaking at that conference, because what you talk about is exactly the kind of things that many people are looking for, anarcho-capitalists who want to learn how to either start a business or improve their careers.
Oh yes, Jeff. I'll be happy to speak. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely talk about that off air, and we could, I guess depending on the other speakers you have, we can definitely create an itinerary about maybe some workshops I'll give to the audience. But yeah, I'll be happy to.
That's great.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, no, that's great. Glad to hear. So yeah, let's finish up. If there's anything else you want to talk about, go ahead, and then also make sure people find out where they can get more information on your book and on yourself.
Yeah, so one thing that I'm doing at the end of this month is I am having a sort of like a weekend workshop, and where people who want direct access to me, they can be able to have that. I offer that to my email subscribers, but I'll also extend that courtesy to the Dollar Vigilante listeners. So for example, if people are, if they are employed or make the transition to be an entrepreneur, they can definitely buy the book Reaching the Finish Line. But if they want to really get on an accelerated track, they could work with me personally. They could come down here at San Miguel de Alende. They could spend a whole weekend. Within that weekend, they'll get 24 hours of access to me, 16 hours of education. I'll work with them directly. Then 8 hours, and I could show them, some amazing things in the city, and they can get access to that when they hop on the newsletter at reachingthefinishline.com. There will be a pop-up box that comes up, and you can be able to sign for that. But once I put on my website, within about 10 days, it's probably going to be about 50% more than the price I'm offering to my email subscribers, as well as the Dollar Vigilante listeners, where you become a part of the newsletter. But yeah, you can pick up the book. The book is very helpful. If you have to stay in the U.S., you can find the book of great value. And you can also follow me on Facebook, on Twitter. I have a podcast. Like I said, as I was saying before, Jeff, I interview people from Shark Tank, a lot of other people in the education field on Forbes, and they can be able to access there at reachingthefinishline.com/podcast.
That's great. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to get into business around the world, or even in the U.S., we have groups in the U.S., just go to dollarvigilante.com and subscribe, and then you have access to the Dollar Vigilante groups, which are all around. You can even talk to Kallen in the San Miguel group, and we have about 300 in the Acapulco group now, and it's excellent information. If you're thinking at all about even expatriating, this is probably the best resource you can get for it, because you get access to people around the world doing these things. I've already seen major business deals being done on those groups. There's already been one love connection, which isn't the point of the group, but two people hooked up here in Acapulco through the group. They're both very happy, for what I can tell. So yeah, it's a great community. And
yeah, I definitely, I've been a fan of the groups, Jeff. I definitely love it. And like I said, I would definitely challenge you. We spoke about gap years earlier, Jeff, and you was talking about, if you could, you would just give your kids $20,000 to sit around the country, sit around the world rather. I think that's a great idea, and that's why I usually suggest for people who are not sure if they want to go to college, like prior to going to their freshman year, or maybe if they finish their sophomore year and they're still not sure if they really want to finish the next 2 to 4 years, absolutely taking a gap year. Taking a gap year could be very powerful. If you're thinking about being a business owner, it can definitely develop your international business skills. So yeah, I absolutely advocate a gap year.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the best education you can have is traveling and seeing how things work in different places, because every country is different, as you know, and you can always see opportunities, because some countries have this thing, but they're missing that. And because you're from a place like the U.S., and if you've traveled a bit, you can see the opportunities so easily. So definitely recommend that. I'll also point out I'm speaking in Vancouver, Canada, on August 1st at the Capitalism and Morality Conference. I'm also speaking on August 2nd at the Sons of Anarchy Conference in Vancouver. You can check that out at the dollarvigilante.com website. And that's basically it for Anarchast. If you like this sort of information, please like, subscribe, share. That's how we can get this information out there, help more people to improve their lives, and live a more peaceful and prosperous life through anarchism. So that's it for Anarchy, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
When you consider that you have to spend all your time basically unteaching what your kids just learned.
So not only must the government recognize natural rights, but the government can't disparage them. Unfortunately, the people in the government have a hole in their copy where the Second Amendment is, the Ninth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment.
So, this is not so saintly. I mean, because he's got the reputation of favoring, ending slavery. But he wasn't an opponent of slavery. The abolitionists were opponent of slavery, but not Abe Lincoln.
I mean, the actual argument and the explanation is pretty darn simple. I mean, it's so simple as to almost be self-evident. I mean, things like self-ownership and the non-aggression principle, it takes about 3 seconds to demonstrate that government can't be legitimate.
Well, I think human beings have the right to shape their own reality. And that's what's been taken away from us. We are participating involuntarily in a system that shapes our reality for us. And the first step is to not allow that.
You're paying off your debt, you have to pay off your car loans, your mortgage, you have to maybe even live with your parents, and then you look back at your life and you did nothing. You never challenged yourself, you never experienced anything, you never lived your life because you kept doing what the machine told you to do.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.